Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to explore a story that completely transcends the world of manufacturing. We're looking at how a massive global empire was built, not just on the back of great engines, but on a radical and profoundly human philosophy. So, let's dive right in and uncover the true engine behind Honda's phenomenal success.
We only have one future, and it will be made of our dreams if we have the courage to challenge convention. These are the words of Soichiro Honda, and they lay the absolute foundation of a company built entirely on defying the odds, ignoring the establishment, and fiercely protecting the right to dream.
Section 1. The Rebel with a Wrench. To really understand this global powerhouse, we first have to understand the rebel behind it. Our story begins in a poor Japanese village with the incredibly rebellious son of a blacksmith. As a toddler, Soichiro saw his very first car. It was a Ford Model T, and he later recalled that the oil it gave off smelled like perfume to him. From that exact moment, he was totally captivated by machinery.
But, he was far less captivated by traditional schooling. In fact, he possessed an absolute disdain for it. To hide his bad grade reports, which actually required a family stamp of approval, young Soichiro cleverly carved a fake family seal out of a used rubber bicycle pedal. It was a perfect forgery. It showed incredible mechanical ingenuity for a child, even if he did eventually get caught for making those stamps for all his classmates.
That rebellious streak, it never faded. He famously declared, "A diploma is less useful than a ticket to a movie." A ticket, he argued, at least guaranteed you'd get in to see the show, while a diploma guaranteed absolutely nothing. The crucial takeaway here is that Honda believed, down to his core, that rolling up your sleeves, taking real-world action, and getting your hands dirty would always beat sitting in a classroom memorizing theories.
Section 2. The Perfect Partnership. Because, let's be honest, unbridled rebellious creativity is rarely enough on its own to build an enduring global empire.
So, what does this really mean? How exactly does a brilliant but stubborn mechanic who pretty much despises formal education and traditional business rules manage to scale his wild dreams into a functioning, profitable business?
Well, the answer lies in finding your exact opposite. Enter Takeo Fujisawa. Fujisawa was a shrewd, highly capable businessman who stepped right in to provide the perfect counterbalance to Honda's relentless engineering obsession. When they met, they instantly recognized that they each possessed exactly what the other lacked. It was like a giant puzzle coming together.
They agreed upon a very strict, yet perfectly harmonious division of labor. Honda would focus entirely on inventing and refining the best engines in the world. He wouldn't have to look at a single spreadsheet. Fujisawa, in turn, handled all the marketing, the financing, and the complex company organization. It was an unbreakable bond built on total trust.
Section 3. The Crucible of Failure. With this phenomenal partnership secured, they naturally set their sights beyond Japan. But the path to global dominance was paved with massive, heartbreaking setbacks. Back in 1954, Honda audaciously declared that his company was going to enter and win the Isle of Man TT. That's the most prestigious motorcycle race in the world. But when he actually traveled there to observe the competition, he was just utterly shocked. The international competitors were producing vastly more horsepower than his machines. It was literally like comparing a prop plane to a jet engine. He was completely outclassed. But instead of throwing in the towel, Honda doubled down. He leaned into a philosophy that would define his entire life. He famously stated that success represents merely the 1% of your work that results from the 99% that is called failure. Now, why is this important? Why on earth would a company choose to openly celebrate its blunders, its blown engines, and its massive setbacks on the racetrack? Because failing forward relentlessly is pretty much the only way to achieve historic breakthroughs. A prime example of this is the CVCC engine of the 1970s. While all their competitors were struggling and complaining about these strict new U.S. emissions laws, Honda's team used their culture of trial and error to design a brilliant combustion engine. It burned fuel so cleanly that it beat the emission standards completely on its own. It didn't even need a catalytic converter. The impossible became reality purely through repeated failure. Section 4. The Honda Way. As the company expanded globally, particularly making its way into the United States, they knew they needed to bottle this magic. This is how Soichiro's personal philosophy of grit and equality transformed into a formalized corporate culture. Think about your traditional corporate culture for a second. It relies heavily on hierarchy, right?
Private parking spaces, corner offices, expensive suits to show everybody exactly who is in charge. Well, the Honda way firmly rejected all of that. They implemented shared cafeterias, open floor plans with 0 private offices, and equal uniforms for everyone. They actively removed every obvious physical symbol that suggested one person was superior to another. This mindset led to their most famous policy, the mandatory white uniform for all associates. And that means everyone, from the highest level executive right down to the newest assembly line worker. This spotless white jacket was actually a humble nod to Soichiro's own childhood. As a boy, he was nicknamed Little Rat because his clothes were constantly filthy from working. Now, that clean white uniform served as a powerful equalizer on the factory floor.
But what does this really mean for the people actually on the floor? What happens when you strip away the fancy suits, the corner offices, and the intimidating titles?
Well, it creates an environment for something Honda calls Waigaya. Because those social and physical barriers are completely gone, absolutely anyone, from the freshest hire to the most seasoned manager, can speak up, challenge the status quo, and debate ideas fiercely. It breeds unprecedented teamwork, simply because the best idea always wins, regardless of whose mouth it comes from.
Section 5. The Power of Dreams. Let's take a step back and look at the ultimate legacy of this remarkable man and his underdog company.
Soichiro Honda once reflected, "When I take stock of life, I realize how important the personal contact is, how much more they are worth than the invention of machines." His greatest masterpiece was never a motorcycle. It wasn't a world-beating race car or an ultra-efficient engine. His greatest masterpiece was a philosophy that empowered human potential.
The story of Honda teaches us something absolutely crucial. An organization's most valuable asset isn't its massive physical factories or its brilliant patents. The ultimate asset will always be the uninhibited dreams, the passionate curiosity, and the stubborn individuality of its people.
It's a really powerful lesson in looking past immediate failures and keeping your eyes fixed firmly on the horizon. So, I'm going to leave you with this final thought to consider today. How will you use your 99% of failures to fuel your 1% of success? Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer.